What is going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Mikasa Sukasa. This episode is special for a plethora of reasons. One, as you can probably tell, this is a different day than normal, right? Usually, we're on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. However, actually, at one point we were on 7, and then we were at 9. But now we have moved to Monday, and there are a few reasons for that. One, y'all know Tim Black is my family, and because we are family, and because we are so close, and because so many people, so many supporters of both of ours, know that we are very close. While I was doing my show at 9, a lot of people were messaging me, messaging Tim, and like, hey, I have to flip back and forth between both of your shows because both of us were live streaming at the same time. You know, he has his Tim Black at Night show every night, actually, at 9 p.m. On YouTube, where he does call-ins as well. So, of course, I didn't want to have people have to keep switching back and forth between my show and Tim's show, especially because it's likely that Tim's probably going to win that battle 90% of the time, so it's cool. But also, we had to move the show because, well, now we are doing a 2-hour show. We're doing a 2-hour show from 5 p.m. Eastern Standard to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard. Now, why is that? Well, it's because we're going to start doing call-ins. Woo! That means if you have any gripes, grievances, suggestions, information, whatever it is that you may want to talk about, you can actually call in. The call-in portion of the show starts at 6 p.m. after the break, and we can talk about it. I'm pretty freaking excited about that because, well, I never had my own call-in show before. So, of course, this is new for me. Not new for the producer, but it is new for me. So, if we have any technical difficulties while we're doing the call-in show, bear with us because, like I said, this is the first time for me. So, we're going to be learning as we go. It's going to be a new experience for everybody, but I'm excited about it because I feel like a lot of you all have a lot to contribute to this conversation. And so the first thing I want to discuss is the release of Jared's book, What Happened to Bernie Sanders. I think many of you have already gotten your pre-ordered copy. I am picking mine up from Jared on Tuesday, I believe. Or that would be tomorrow. So yeah, on Tuesday I'll be picking it up, and I'm going to be picking it up from their office as I give Jared an interview about the book. Now, as many of you know, I think this will be like the second interview that Jared has done pretty much since he started writing the book. And there are a few reasons for that. But the book is done. It is being shipped out. It is on the way. If you have not gotten it yet, you will get it. If you have not ordered it or pre-ordered it, I suggest you go to Barnes & Noble, Amazon, wherever you can right now. Because if you're wanting a hard copy, like a hardback copy or even a paperback copy, those are actually going to be running probably in short supply here pretty soon. Because at one point in time, I do know that Jared's book was the #1 most anticipated book on Amazon. Once again, it's entitled What Happened to Bernie Sanders, and I think the likelihood of Jared's book being #1 was pretty high, considering most people are probably more interested in what happened to Bernie Sanders coming from someone who was actively participating, you know, in one form, which is through the lawsuit and through his super PAC, with the Bernie Sanders movement. And so people probably more interested in that than the nonsensical story that wasn't actually true, according to Hillary Clinton, for her book, What Happened. That didn't do so well. It's crazy to think that she went on a book tour, right? And now they're having to slash her book prices down to what? Like $4 or $5. I heard some places. It's not looking good. It's not looking good at all. Um, we have, I mean, there are so many people who have just been so uh, gracious towards Jared and gracious towards Liz, and I am one of those people. I want to make it perfectly clear. Jared, first of all, Jared goes out of his way, and y'all don't know this, but I can say it now because the book is out. Jared is a brilliant writer. Jared's one of those people who's actually probably too smart for his own good. So one of the best ways for him to express himself in a way that is like palatable to the general population is through writing, which is why he had his own blog that he oftentimes updated during the election. Jared has a law degree from Harvard. Jared has a master's degree from Harvard. Jared has a doctorate. He's a PhD, I think, as well. Or at least I think he either became a PhD or he transferred his PhD into his JD. But moral of the story is Jared is much more important. He has much more clout and much more influence than a lot of people realize or give him any credit for. Because he's a very humble man. Him and Liz both. I always make fun of Jared because every time he puts a suit on, I give him shit because he never wears a suit. God forbid. Like, he never wears a button up. Jared likes walking around in basketball shorts and sandals, people. I'm not exaggerating. Legitimately, he likes walking around in basketball shorts and sandals. And so when I tell you that although the man is a genius, one of the best legal theorists that I have ever met, and I've met a lot of them in my career, he's one of the most open-minded people that you could ever meet. One of the most patient people that you could ever meet. And so when he reached out to me, or he reached out to me through a third party to come and meet him, and meet Liz, and then they sat down with me. And at this point, of course, I didn't know their backgrounds. So I'm just going off of, at that point, the strength of, man, I really hope that in the midst of all this craziness, because at this point, this is when I was coming out with all the information that I had found out through the DNC fraud lawsuit. So when I went there and we talked about what I had saw and what I had documented, they kind of gave me, okay, well, if you want to continue this investigation, you can come to our office whenever you want to. And I was like, okay, you sure? Absolutely. Come whenever you want. Every single day from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. If you need to stay later, just let the secretary know so she can lock the door behind you. But we want to make sure we give you all the tools that you need so that you can investigate this matter as much as humanly possible, because Jared and Liz recognized the gravity of what I had found, which was that there was an established pattern of infiltration within the Bernie Sanders campaign. There are a lot of people who, a lot of people had called me crazy. A lot of people had called me paranoid. Obviously, a lot of people doubted me. I even had people that I helped get jobs on the Bernie Sanders campaign. And as soon as I came out with this information, they turned their back on me almost immediately. Because I didn't want to, oh, well, you know, I can't really talk to you about that because my job. And I want you to understand something. I had other people on the campaign who also had my back, you know, and people were using their security on that campaign as a reason to downplay what I had found. People that we were, these are my friends and my colleagues and at the time co-workers that we both were suspicious of these people that I had eventually called out. But when the time arose where we had to start holding people accountable, not only were they nowhere to be found, but even more so, they would spread rumors online amongst the community that I was living in, saying that I was just looking for attention, that I had no proof of anything, that that I was just trying to sabotage Bernie Sanders. These are people these were executive officers in my club, someone who was in executive position for my college students for Bernie Group in North Carolina that I eventually got a job on the campaign. And I even I let her speak in my place to introduce Bernie Sanders in Greensboro. And she doesn't even know this. But I didn't do it for recognition from her. I did it because I felt like that was the right thing to do. I mean, there are people, this is serious. This is serious. There was a woman being harassed and bullied out of her position in our Bernie Sanders organization that I literally spent an entire day, well, really an entire week, it seems, going back and forth with the campaign itself, with that particular Bernie group, and with her to make sure that she did not get jostled out of her position simply because she was a woman of color and there was nobody wanted to advocate for her. And I advocated for her because it was the right thing to do. And she turned her back on me. So when I tell you the hope that it gave me whenever Jared and Liz invited me into their office, into their home, to the point where now whenever I go over their house, the kids get super excited. They try to bully me. But I love Jared and Liz's kids. Me and the dog are tight like this. They even have one of my kittens. But I didn't know Jared's history whenever they invited me into the office. I didn't know Liz's history. I didn't know what they had done. I didn't know what they do. And of course, you can imagine how I kind of felt whenever I walked into the conference room for the first time. And I'm looking at I'm like, oh, wow, who went to Harvard? And they were like, Jared was like, oh, yeah, I did. I was like, oh, well, who went to Yale? And Liz, oh, yeah, I went to Yale. And they're telling me all these stories in cases that, y'all, I promise you, if I told you about some of the cases that they've had with high society people, you wouldn't even believe me. You wouldn't believe me. Kim Kardashian would be one of them. Okay? Seriously. They are phenomenal people who are extremely humble. So when I talked to Liz and she told me, that I was going to be in the book, which Jared he told me that I was going to be in the book, and I thought it was going to be like an honorable mention. Hi, how are you? And thank you for what you did, and about going about your business. Because that's essentially what I had been personally receiving throughout this entire ordeal dealing with the infiltration. Not saying that a lot of good hasn't come from it, but no one has extended their appreciation more than Jared and Liz. And that's been consistent. And so a friend had got their book yesterday, and she said, Niko, I have to read these pages to you. And I was like, why? She was like, I almost started tearing up whenever I read what he wrote about you. I was like, really? You know, I was like, really? Are you sure? Jared's not an emotional person, although his writing can be emotional. But I just, she read them to me, and I was thinking back to how Liz had informed me that, hey, I can't go into all the details, but Jared was essentially advocating strongly to make sure that my position in that book and how he portrayed me was not changed at all whatsoever. And his advocacy for my message, for what I was trying to do, and just his advocacy for the recognition that he and Liz and others felt I never received was extremely touching. And to be totally honest with you, I still haven't really received it yet. Like, it kind of sunk in, but it didn't really sink in. But for them to sit me down in that office and I come up with this plan, I said, hey, here's what we have to do. Because Jared asked me. He didn't. For people, some people have this like belief that like Jared and Liz was like, oh, we're gonna do a lawsuit, and somehow Niko just came along the way, and that wasn't the case. In fact, Jared and Liz, which is probably one of their best qualities, were very open to hearing what my idea was, because they're like, well, he figured out how to get this far, so maybe we should take his advice. And so I said, we need to do this, this, and this. Here's the information we need to get. We need to start documenting this. And here's a law. Here's what I think we should do as far as the lawsuit is concerned. They are a corporation, and so because of that, or they're incorporated, and because of that, we can do this, this, and this. And I bullshit you not, Jared heard that, it clicked, and he was off to the races. He called one of his good friends and colleagues who was a class action expert. Once again, for a lot of people, that's not like a big deal. But for me, who pretty much outside of the military, nobody had ever taken the things that I had said because of my age. That's it. Well, it's been a couple of people, but not people who just met me. Okay. Not some attorney with his own practice who just met me. He called that class action attorney almost immediately. He started preparing the case. And if you don't understand what that requires, every moment that Jared is not working, every moment that he is working on the DNC fraud lawsuit, is another moment that he cannot spend of his time working on another smaller, more achievable, more realistic, even given the relationship between the political system and the justice system, but a more realistic case, because that's his law firm. They live off of whatever is provided by that law firm. And he took a chance on a 26, 27-year-old kid at the time. Well, I still am a kid in a lot of ways. But he took a chance on me because I had the research, I had the logic, and I had the passion. And he didn't look back. In fact, he did quite the opposite. He helped me out in more ways than a lot of people don't know. And so when I tell you that if you want to read an authentic perspective, not only talking about, because it's called what happened to Bernie Sanders, of course, and that part is important, and what happened to Bernie Sanders is important because of how it affected everyone else. But if you want to read, because Hillary Clinton's book was all about her. why she wrote a book called What Happened is actually still really weird to me. That's like, you wrote a whole book making excuses? Didn't your mom always tell you, don't be making no excuses, just go get it done? Woo, she had plenty of them. And it's all about her. It's all about how things didn't go her way. How her crown didn't get positioned right when she ran for office. And it is a stark contrast to what happened to Bernie Sanders' book. And what I mean by that is that what happened to Bernie Sanders is not only about what happened to Bernie in his campaign, but what happened to the people involved. It's about the sacrifices that so many made in order for Bernie to be in the position where he is in right now. We can debate, the rhetoric, some of the rhetoric he's using right now, and it would be perfectly defensible, but that's not what this book is about. This book talks about the lives that have been lost in pursuit of the democracy that we chased while Bernie Sanders was running. Because that's really what we were doing. It wasn't, we realized very early that it was not an even race. And so the reason that so many of us became more and more passionate, it stopped being about helping Bernie Sanders win, and it started being more so about, holy shit, we're worse off than what we thought, and if we don't do something about it right now, it's over. This democracy is not going to survive. And so people became more hyper vigilant. People started making more sacrifices. Do you know how many people quit their job to pursue whatever endeavor they could to get justice for those who had spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of effort into this Bernie Sanders campaign? You know how many people lost their jobs during the Bernie Sanders campaign simply so they could follow and volunteer for his campaign? Some people quit their jobs just to be staffers on his campaign, knowing that their staffing jobs would be temporary because it meant that much to them, because they saw the same thing that I saw. They saw the exact same thing that I saw, which was that as much as I love Bernie and I love Jane, I love his family, democracy is at a crossroads. And if this fails, all the things that are happening with the left right now, how the left is so fragmented and splintered into different groups, how everybody is so distrusting now. Everybody is fighting. Before, when we thought we could trust, we knew that Bernie Sanders didn't always make the exact right decision, but we at least felt like we could 100% trust him, and that he would do whatever he could if it was in our best interest, or if he thought it was in our best interest. A time where our only enemies were Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, more so Hillary Clinton, and even and Jill Stein and Bernie and Tulsi and Nina. You have people now who are advocating for Bernie Sanders, who are attacking Nina. You have people now who are attacking Tim Black. And this is the nicest guy ever who never has done anything wrong to anybody. You have people now who are feeding off of the anger in this like dystopian democracy that we're living in right now, where we have no idea the direction that we're heading in, or that we're going to end up. And they're feeding off of this. They're profiting off of this. Using our anger for views. Using frustration for views, for clicks. TYT totally fell off. They are not the same. And I actually talked about this I talked about this in a few of my early live streams. Because deception is a very, very useful weapon in politics. And there were so many people who co-opted the movement. There's so many. Ro Khanna is one of them. I do not think that Ro Khanna is a progressive. This Kevin De Leon is another one. There were also some people who used to think that Hillary Clinton and that camp was on their side, and they had some rude awakenings. But this story that Jared is describing isn't one that's surrounded by, is centered around Bernie Sanders, but rather centered around the individual experiences and the knowledge, really, that was gained and the effort that was expended by the people who fought for him to be in office. And I think that's something that everybody should read. If you want to ask me, I would say that that book will be a book that is potentially read if our democracy ever is fixed. I should say. Let me go ahead and premise with that. But if our democracy is ever to be fixed, or if it ever is fixed, that book will be one that is read in college courses, in political science courses, and that's because it should be read. That book is an insight. Because remember, Bernie Sanders, although it was unique in a lot of ways, he was not the first one to experience this. And I wish I could remember the name, but he was not the first one to experience this. There was I think two more Democrats who went to convention, actually won, and it was like they just had it snatched from under them. And then the superdelegate system, of course, was invented specifically to make sure that someone like Bernie Sanders, who could actually galvanize everyone from all sides, from every party, and the independents, could never win. It's crazy. But with that book, it could be used as a teaching tool. And I'm excited to see how history could be potentially changed by kids, teenagers, young people who are wanting to get involved in politics, and all they can remember seeing on their timelines at one point is Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders. And it's crazy to think, I don't like to be morbid, but I'm also, like I said, I understand the reality that Bernie is not young. I pray that he lives to 150. But once again, I'm not naive. And I hate the fact that I may have a 10-year period that I knew that Bernie Sanders existed. Because if I would have known somebody like Bernie Sanders existed a long time ago, I wouldn't have settled for Obama. I would have been telling the truth about him. I wouldn't have settled for even the thought of a Hillary Clinton. I didn't accept the narrative for the war in Iraq, but I did, along with many other people, accept the narrative for the war in Afghanistan because it made perfect sense to us at the time. And I wouldn't have accepted it if I knew there was a Bernie Sanders in the Senate telling us to do otherwise. And although I don't agree with everything that Bernie Sanders is doing at this very moment, I won't say what he's doing, because he's doing a lot of stuff that, like Medicare for all, for example. He's doing a lot of good things. I don't agree with everything he's saying at the moment. But I can say that if I knew who Bernie Sanders was in 2002, 2003, 2004, if some of you who are a little bit older than I am knew who he was in 1990, 1995, then we wouldn't have settled for this bullshit that has landed us in the position where we're in right now. And although I don't agree with everything that he's talking about at this very moment, I can say that he made us question this system. He made us take a critical look at the system that is in front of us. And wow. Some people thought they were woke before. Remember how our conversations used to simply devolve to, it's the Republicans stopping Obama from doing anything. Rah, rah, rah. They hit him because he's black. Although that's partially true, mostly true. But still, little did we know Obama was over there bombing Somalia and Yemen and, sending CIA into Sudan and Libya. And Bernie Sanders is the reason I question why Gaddafi was killed. Bernie Sanders was the reason I questioned why Saddam Hussein was killed. Bernie Sanders is the reason that I question why Saudi Arabia seemed to be getting special treatment. Bernie Sanders is the reason that I had my own radio show, and I decided very much so like he did, because Bernie Sanders has a very good degree. Bernie Sanders could have been a lawyer. He's clearly very intelligent. But Bernie Sanders in an age where it wasn't easy to do so decided to pursue his passion in activism and civil rights, where there was no guaranteed profit to come from that. He gave people the strength. He gave this millennial generation specifically the strength to say, you know what? If I have to postpone my career, then I'll do that. Maybe I don't get to live the life that I wanted or I imagined living. Maybe I have to wait a little bit longer to have kids, like Bernie did. Maybe I gotta drive the same car I drove in high school and hope that it carries me to the promised land. But it'll be worth it if my kids and kids of future generations can live in a system where they trust the institutions that are leading them versus fearing them like we do right now. And that was a battle that Bernie fought for 50 plus years now. Holy shit. I think at 80 it'll be 50 years. No. At 80 I think it'll be going on 60 years of activism. 60 years of activism. And so I'm glad that Jared told that story. And I want to go ahead and get into this news about the DNC fraud lawsuit. So as most of you all know, the DNC fraud lawsuit has been having some crazy twists and turns lately. But we did have to appeal it. And we went through the appeals process, and we're still in the process really of the appeals process. But it took a positive turn. But as usual, the DNC's attorneys, they made an ass out of themselves once again. Shouldn't even be that surprising to anybody anymore. It's kind of like, whatever. And I was going to do a video about this on the day that it happened, the 23rd or the 24th, but I decided to wait until this show to do it so that we could talk about, if you wanted to call in and have any conversations about the DNC fraud lawsuit, or even asking any questions that that you want me to relay to either Jared or Liz, I would be more than happy to do that. But I do want to talk about this. And actually, I was going to read the document, but here's what I'm going to do. If you all are on Twitter, make sure that you follow Elizabeth Vaz from Disobedient Media. She writes she does some amazing work. Great articles. Everything's fact based. Nothing's like, if she's gonna state something, it's going to be backed up with facts and links. So definitely check her out. So I want to go ahead and read to you an excerpt from this article from Elizabeth Voss. The ongoing litigation of the DNC fraud lawsuit and the appeal regarding its dismissal took a stunning turn yesterday. The defendants in the case, including the DNC and a former chairwoman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, filed a response brief that left many observers of the case lost for words. And for some reason, I'm going to probably be on the side where I'm not lost for words, because there's nothing that really surprises me going forward. But let's dive in. The document provided by the law offices of the attorneys for the plaintiffs in the case, Jared and Liz, appears to argue that if the Democratic Party did cheat Bernie Sanders in 2016, then that action was protected under the First Amendment. What in the actual fuck? Let's continue. The defense counsel also argued that because of Jared Beck's outspoken Twitter posts, the plaintiffs were using the litigation process for political purposes. Wow. I'm going to address that in a second too. For example, the plaintiff's counsel, Jared Beck, repeatedly refers to the DNC as shitbags on Twitter. Listen, you can't be mad at Jared for pointing out a material fact, people. I'm sorry. Y'all are shitbags. Y'all are bags of shit. Like, y'all are. If you want, I'm just be honest with you. You can't be mad at him for stating a material fact. You're gonna be mad. Hold up, real quick, double back. You're gonna be mad at Jared for stating a material fact, for calling y'all shitbags, but y'all the same group of attorneys who said that a judge cannot properly adjudicate what the definition of objective is. Do you understand how stupid that shit sounds? Y'all are the same people that told a judge, you know, hey, I bullshit you not. This is how I went. I was in the courtroom when he said it. He said, we don't even know what the definition of objectivity is. Like, what is objective? You know, that's another, you know, case within itself. I looked at this one. I said, yo, I use this a lot because I feel like these are like the arguments that I used to make when I would try to get away with something with my mother. And that's exactly what it sounded like. How stupid do you sound trying to tell a judge, how do we properly adjudicate what objectivity is? You know, how do we define that? I don't know. Maybe we should ask the judge, whose job it is to adjudicate abstract concepts. Or we can ask the fucking dictionary and everybody else who knows exactly what the fuck objectivity means. Nah? That too much? Too much work for y'all? Okay, let's move on. So, I'm gonna read on. They said that Jared also uses other degrading language in reference to the defendants. Fascinatingly, no mention is made regarding the importance of the First Amendment at this first point in the document. So the reason that they attacked Jared for his Twitter post was because they're trying to discredit him. Although I'm a fan of Jared speaking his mind. He'd be flying off the handle sometimes, which is pretty entertaining from my perspective. But I love the fact that Jared and Liz don't give a damn about like what the idea of looking like a quote unquote professional or talented lawyer is. Like, just be you. And Jared and Liz are the definitions of being yourself. And they haven't changed that for anybody. And I find that to be more respectable and real than anything that any of these attorneys represent, especially a corporate attorney, which, by the way, Jared left a corporate law firm, a cushy job, to do the right thing for people. So, in case you were curious about that. So, it goes on to say that this author was shocked to find that despite the characterization of the Becks and the peddlers of conspiracy theory, the defense counsel failed to mention the motion for protection filed by the Becks earlier in the litigation process. They also failed to note the voice-modulated phone calls received by the law offices of the Becks, which contained a caller ID corresponding to the law offices of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, defendant in the case. In light of this, the Becks hardly appear to be peddlers of conspiracy theory. And I would 100% agree with that, obviously. Jared and Liz have never, hell, I would say that especially Liz, but Jared as well. They don't ever mention anything on Twitter. They never wrote anything. They never talk about anything that hasn't been proven fact. Like, Seth Rich would have been a witness in this case. Fact. Seth Rich's investigation was and has been essentially abruptly shut down. Fact. Private investigator turned away at the door of the DC Metro Police Department. Fact. Before, we didn't have any film. Fact. And then all of a sudden, whenever they wanted to make an excuse for, oh yeah, we promised it was a botched robbery, film turns up. Fact. He was taken to one hospital, taken to another hospital. Fact. Our process server was killed serving the DNC. Well, not while serving the DNC, but right before we were about to do a hearing for their motion to dismiss, he was killed. Or he died. Fact. Healthy, not a drug addict. In fact, he had just started a business. He was very happy in his relationship. He was a very happy person, a very positive person. Fact. We tried to get their autopsy. Hell, they tried as attorneys in the case to get an autopsy. Refused. Fact. I tried to get an autopsy. I was refused. Fact. Had a private investigator try to get an autopsy. He was refused. Fact. Multiple people have been threatened. Fact. Not just the Becks. Not just people connected to the Becks. But plaintiffs in the lawsuit had their houses broken into, had their cars broken into, the backs of their computers taken off and put back together. Fact. But tell me once again how Jared and Liz have peddled conspiracy. A witness in our case and a process server both died. And the circumstances surrounding both, like if it was an open and shut situation, then wouldn't be as much of an issue. But it has not been. It was not an open and shut situation at all. It was open and then y'all just shut it. But it wasn't an open and shut situation, if you catch my drift. It was open. We should have been investigating it. And then y'all shut it down. I'll give you another good example. Like Pizzagate, for example. We don't even have to talk about the fact whether you find it to be true or not true. I am on the side of the fence, if you want me to be honest with you, that I don't put shit past elites. Historically, elites have been pedophiles. I don't know what's surprising about this. We literally just dealt with this with the Catholic Church. So, we don't even have to talk about that, though. Let's talk about the fact that Ben Swann disappeared. If you don't know who Ben Swann is, look him up. The guy is out of this world. I legitimately fear for his life because he cannot be stopped. The man's like fucking invincible. Ben Swann went to investigate Syria and came back and blew that shit wide open. Ben Swann announced that he was going to investigate Pizzagate, which was like, whoa, bro, like, listen. And this was, mind you, Ben Swann was on the mainstream media station, and he was so good at his job, he was so reliable, he was so factual that even his station was pissed that he had to leave. Ben Swann was finding something, and he found something that implicated Bill Clinton, that implicated Jeffrey Epstein, that even implicated Donald Trump, that implicated both of the pizza places that were involved. Ben Swan was the one who discovered that the owner of the Comet Pizza is like top 3 most influential people in Washington D.C. That was Ben Swan. And he's open about that. They took his social media away. They fired him from the broadcasting station. They were refusing him the rights to the video that he already had. He couldn't have any account connected to that station. Thank God he's still alive. And they try to suppress him, and he keeps fighting back. But my point is, he said that he's going to investigate Pizzagate. He didn't say Pizzagate is for a fact 100% true. He didn't say that. All he said was, you know what? Why do we keep talking about whether it's true or not? How about we step up and investigate? Because at the very bare minimum, there's reasonable suspicion and reasonable cause, which I think everybody would agree with. And the moment he said that, they stopped him at the door. Just like whenever Rod Wheeler was going to investigate what happened to Seth Rich, the DC police stopped him at the door as well. And whenever we try to get our autopsy for Sean Lucas, we were stopped at the door. And it seems to be a pretty consistent fucking pattern with being stopped at the door. But it's crazy those who are willing to do the hard work, willing to do the leg work, are labeled conspiracy theorists. In an age where information is so readily available, there is no goddamn way that you're going to label everything going. People are trying to say that people that, like, for example, I wasn't called conspiracy theorists before this, but I saw a video where people were like, or comments in the video where people were like, you think that teacher saw something, a person armed in the hallway? Wouldn't that be all over CNN? Sound like a fucking conspiracy theorist. I'm like, bro, it was on Good Morning America. You didn't even take the time to look before you just yelled conspiracy theorists at somebody. This was on Good Morning America. The girl who said that she was walking side by side with Nicholas De Cruz when 2 shots went off, that wasn't some random Alex Jones interview. That was on local television. But what I've come to find out, and maybe at one point in time conspiracy theorists had some type of merit, but now it's just a word that people are using because they're very, very much so uncomfortable with the truth. And it's much easier to say, you're a conspiracy theorist, and be like, what the fuck, are you serious? You know that means our government, like, we can't trust our government? Yeah, we know. Does that mean we need to investigate every other mass shooting that had similar situations? Yeah, it does. Does that mean everything up until this point has been orchestrated by some government entity? Yeah, probably. Nobody wants to deal with that. That's a hard pill to swallow. Now, the DNC defense attorneys argued that there is no legitimate basis for this litigation, which is, at its most basic, an improper attempt to forge the federal courts into a political weapon used by individuals who are unhappy with how a political party selected its candidate in the presidential campaign. Ooh. That's a little bit different than what he argued in the hearing to dismiss. You see how he said that? With individuals who are unhappy with how a political party selected its candidate in the presidential campaign. And I love this, and I'm glad it's written down, because all Jared at this point and Liz and Colin have to do is say, it doesn't matter if you're a fucking political party. You take donations. You have a responsibility. And regardless of even that, you are a federal, have to adhere to federal election laws. let alone the states, but federal election laws. Like the whole 2% thing. You know, if the ballot if exit polls are 2% off, you're supposed to stop the. You're supposed to not. What's the word? Verify the elections for that state, and that was instead y'all decided to say, no, we're just not gonna do any exit. We're just not gonna do any exit polling. But it appears that they decided to double down on their bullshittery, which is perfectly fine with me. It makes Jared and Liz's job much, much easier. Now, I want to read this last part before we head to break, which is to recognize, the brief continue, to recognize any of the causes of action that the plaintiffs allege based on their animating theory would run directly contrary to the long-standing Supreme Court precedent recognizing the central and critical First Amendment's right to enjoy or enjoyed by political parties, especially when it comes to selecting the party's nominee for public office. Now understand this, people. The case that they argue is one of the weakest examples. I understand maybe why they argued it, but when I'm saying it's the weakest example, which I'll go into a little bit when we get back from the break. But Jared offered so many counter examples to that Supreme Court case that it just like swept it under the rug. It's like, yeah, no. You've tried it though. Delegates, selecting their candidate at a convention without any political process is one thing. But a nonprofit who actively engages voters in this particular process that eventually decided that these voters would in some way, form, or fashion determine the outcome of this Democratic primary election, and thereby accepting money to ensure that candidates could continue to campaign, that the DNC could continue to provide the infrastructure for candidates to run in and for you to participate in as a voter. I'm sorry, but motherfucker, you can't just take people's money and do what the hell you want to with it. That's not how reality works. I'm almost 100%. That's not how reality works. Sorry. I don't know what else you want me to tell you. And I'm so happy because this appeal could have went an entirely different way. An entirely different way. But it didn't. And I'm thankful for that. And I hope that they continue to make sure that whatever happens going forward, that they really pound into them that I don't give a damn what the legal arguments are, because I know Jared's going to make the right legal argument no matter what. But I want them to know over and over again how shitty they are. Because as an attorney, in my opinion, it's my fucking radio show. I can have my own opinion about this. Professionally, whatever. But in my opinion about you as a person, you are a shitty person if you're advocating for something like that. So we'll be right back. We're going to go to break and we'll start taking phone calls. See you soon.
You see what line it says mute there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and so before you bring them on the air, unmute them first. And then say, okay, area code 253, you're on the air, or whoever area code they are. And then who am I speaking to? And then if you want to use the edit, you can type their name in at that point, or not, it doesn't matter. And then if you want to take them off the air, you can mute them if they're talking over you, and then bring them back. And you can answer more than one phone call at one time.
Oh, like a conference? So is the phone number that we're going to use, just to re-clarify, is 253-649-4231.
No, that's not the calling number. The calling number.
Everybody, we are back. Thank you all so much for tuning in once again to American Freedom Radio. Now, hopefully, y'all can see my face now because I was just on the intro, but you should be able to see me now. If you're having any trouble seeing me or hearing me, let me know and we can get that reconciled in one way or another. Now, I got some good news, people. You can call in. If you want to call in, whether you're listening to American Freedom Radio over the internet radio station, whether you're listening to us on Twitter or Periscope, whether you listen to us on Facebook or on YouTube, all you have to do is dial 218-339-8525. Once again, that number is 218-339-8525. And you can call in, talk to me, shoot the breeze, do whatever you want to do. If you want to talk about the DNC fraud lawsuit, if you want to ask me any personal questions about how I feel about a particular issue, preferably the issue that we're discussing right now, anything like that, then we are live for that. Now, before we left the show, before we went on break, I did tell you all that the DNC fraud lawsuit attorneys, the defendants, I should say, because that probably sounded like it was Jared and Liz. But and the DNC fraud lawsuit defendants, so the ones who are representing Debbie Wasserman Schultz, in case you're just tuning in, they have decided to pretty much reallege that the DNC can pretty much do what the hell it wants to. They've decided to tell us to shove our democracy, our representative democracy, our supposedly law-abiding democracy up our asses, and that we should just deal with it. Seriously, you should read the article if you have not. Go to Elizabeth Voss or go to disobedientmedia.com, whichever one, and she did a magnificent article on that particular topic. So we are once again back from break, and so if you want to give us a call to talk about anything in particular, you can feel more than free to. But in the meantime, I do want to go ahead and move on to our next topic, and I wanted to reserve the call-in hour for this topic because a lot of people have a lot of questions and a lot of curiosity about this particular topic. And this topic would be what we discussed this morning, if you tuned into my YouTube live stream, which is that this whole Parkland shooting situation has grown weirder and weirder and weirder and weirder every single day. to the point where I'm almost tired of talking about it because I thought, especially because I thought that you all were tired of hearing about it. But that's actually not been the case. In fact, more and more people have been sending me more and more information regarding this particular topic. And so I wanted to do like a small recap on the show because even though there are a lot of people who listen to me on Facebook and on YouTube, I know a lot of you all are probably hearing about this particular development like right now because you're either just getting off work, you haven't actually listened to the podcast, you haven't checked out the Facebook or the Periscope. So you get the new news. I mean the old news like it's new. Does that make sense? That sounds like it makes sense to me though. You get the old news like it's new. Or you get the new news like it's old. Ooh. I should write a philosophy book. And I'll say, hold up real quick. Can I take a sip of mine? Yeah, don't drink this stuff. This is bad for you. It's bad for you. I drink it, but I do a lot of things that are bad for me. I do a lot of stuff that's good for me. I do a lot of big things that are bad for me. I'm young, so I can do that. But call in 218-339-8525. You have any questions, you want to contribute to that conversation, go ahead and reach out and we can get you on the line. In the meantime, if you have not heard, one of the teachers saw a person in armor who had a rifle that she had quote unquote never seen in the Parkland shooting. Now, before any of you say, "Oh, how does she know she saw armor? How does she know she saw this?" Who'd you get that from, Alex Jones? No, actually, weirdly enough, I don't think Alex Jones has said much about that, which is kind of weird. Usually, he's like the first one to jump on the whole conspiracy theory thing. But funny enough, the things that aren't actually conspiracy theory, oftentimes he does not jump on it quickly enough. I guess because it seems so real that he doesn't actually believe it, maybe? I don't know. But he definitely has not spoken about this. And in fact, I only know about only 3 journalists who have done some pretty substantive videos on this, and one of them being myself. One of them is also Debbie Losingmon, the same progressive, who, although I am not a fan of hers, she does gather research, and at the very bare minimum, if you ever want any links to anything, Debbie will have them. I will give her credit where credit is due there. Now, I'm not saying fall into the whole, like, it didn't really happen thing. Like, that's not true. It did happen. Lives were really lost. Okay? And even the woman who was in the video expressed that her neighbor in school, as she described him, lost his life after she told him to get back inside. But he was trying so hard to let as many kids in as humanly possible. And he sacrificed himself by doing so. But this teacher didn't go on InfoWars, didn't go on Your Newswire, wasn't on, the Red Pill or whatever other conservative media site that, is half conspiracy, half reality. It wasn't some right-wing propagandist. It wasn't Fox News. Hell, I would even consider, going on like, it wasn't even on Hannity. And Hannity kind of like toes that line. This wasn't on any of those websites, any of those talk shows. None of those talk show hosts interviewed her. This was on Good Morning America, people. Do you understand that? Do you understand the gravity of that? Because if you don't, I'm going to explain to you why that's a big ass deal. That interview with a woman essentially saying that the shooter is not the guy that they have in custody right now was on Good Morning America. Now, it should bother you because, as you all have probably guessed at this point, CNN has not reported this. MSNBC has not reported this. Hell, I don't even think Fox has picked it up yet. Sheriff Israel, nor the Broward County Sheriff's Department has commented on this. None of the 3 or 4 kids that they have shoved to the forefront have commented on this. But this teacher's interview is real. I don't think that they were expecting her to have that conversation. They interviewed her because she was across the hall from a guy who had gotten killed. And I think that that's what I think that's what they thought was going to be discussed. And it was, actually. It was discussed, and it brought her to tears talking about it. But that's, to me, what makes this allegation, I guess, if you want to put it like that. That, to me, makes this allegation all the more disgusting. Because, well, also, it makes it all the more disgusting, but all the more interesting as well. I say disgusting because it really, really, really makes me feel like somebody is hiding something from me. And I know, trust me, half of y'all know me because I know whenever someone's fucking hiding something. I know when someone's being sneaky. I know when a story doesn't add up. And when they had a kid who, by the way, I'm supposed to be interviewing, one of the survivors from the Parkland massacre, his name is Kyle Kashev or Kushav, whichever one. I butchered his name, but his first name is Kyle. He did not want to follow the official narrative. He didn't want to start blaming. He didn't want to make it a partisan party issue. And some people were like, "Oh well, he must be conservative." No, in fact, one of the pictures that he had before anybody was even following him, was a picture of him actually, like, obviously he's a 17-year-old high school. He can't endorse a Democratic candidate, but he was celebrating a Democratic candidate. So he's not even, quote unquote, necessarily conservative. And yet CNN and MSNBC wouldn't have him on because he wouldn't just say, let's ban weapons, let's blame, Rick Scott, let's blame Marco Rubio, because the partisan politics of this conversation has essentially made everybody lose their fucking minds. Nobody's talking about the issue anymore. The partisan politics of this conversation has moved our efforts to somehow pulling funding from the NRA, as if that's supposed to do something. I'm not sure what that's supposed to do, because if you're a Republican from the South, no less, let alone, most of the country is dominantly red, but if you're a Republican from the South, from the rootinest, tootinest, shootinest South, I dare you to run on a platform that even mentions the word gun reform, the phrase gun reform. Hell, even has the two words gun and reform on your website beside each other or not beside each other, that isn't saying, I love our guns and I refuse to vote for any type of gun reform. That's the only time you will have a Republican candidate say some shit like that, or even have those words together, or even have those words in the general vicinity. So yeah, NRA funds a lot of Republicans and quite a few Democrats as well. But who do you think is going to be affected by the NRA pulling funding? What, they're going to stop running? Do you not see the lack of pushback? At least with the Democrats, They lie about wanting Medicare for all. They're not gonna actually do anything, but they lie about wanting it because they recognize that if they don't get the funding they need from certain people, if they don't have the clout that they need, that comes with at least convincing people that you're going to do what they want, then you're going to get your ass whooped. And then at that point, nobody needs to fund you because you're not going to win an election, and they know that. The Republicans don't even have to put on a facade. They're like, nah, we're not doing shit. Why would we? Why do we need to do that? I'm not going to ban assault rate. For why? Oh, what? I'm not going to win the election? All those Democrats down there are going to kick me out? Ha, ha, ha. Seriously. Not to mention, and I'm probably going to get literally hung for this, but it's reality. It's a fact. Y'all know most mass shootings don't happen in Republican districts. When you're talking about mass, hell, even with gun violence, but if you're talking about mass shootings, if we're going to be entirely real about the situation, most mass shootings happen in upper middle class, wealthy, democratically elected districts. I know it sucks for some people to believe. I know nobody wants to hear that, but Republicans are also going to, if they were intelligent, and some of them are not, but Republicans should be providing the question. It's not happening in our districts. Our districts are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing by and large with their weapons. You get what I'm saying? Like, if they're supposed to be hunting, they're actually using them for hunting. If they only use them to do whatever, shoot at a range, they're only using them for that. These particular mass shootings are happening in democratically elected districts. And all the mass shootings with the most obtuse like situations and circumstances are in democratically elected districts. Like, for sheriff, you have to be elected. So Sheriff Israel is a democratically elected official. Counterintuitively, it seems like that wouldn't be the case, but yeah. So Sheriff Israel is just as much under the hot seat as anybody else in this particular district. And sorry, it makes it worse for me because this is Debbie Wasserman Schultz's district, in case you didn't know. In case you did not know, oh yeah, this is where all the magic happens. Where that Parkland, where Douglas High School was, that was Debbie Wasserman Schultz's district. So, why is that significant? Well, why do you think they fight so hard? Because people really need to understand the context of this, which is why it's so important that if you're watching right now, subscribe to my channel, because I got everybody who was involved in Florida politics, and I already talked to Elijah Manley. I have 2 interviews with Elijah Manley. One when he first announced that he was running for school board at large, and then this recent one where he talks about his interactions as a classmate with Nicholas Day Cruz. But the significance of this being a Debbie Wasserman Schultz ran district is why somehow it seems like the Democratic Party is like putting themselves in the hole to make sure that that Debbie Wasserman Schultz keeps winning this district. Understand, even Hillary Clinton, I know it sounds, once again, counterintuitive, but even Hillary Clinton has not gotten the help that from the party that Debbie Wasserman Schultz has received to make sure that she stays victorious in this area. Many of you are familiar with Miami-Dade County, but a lot of you are not familiar with Broward County. Broward County is a very profitable county. It's a very profitable area. That's where Fort Lauderdale is, if you will. But it's very profitable. We call it the white Miami. It's where white people go when they want to live with the experience of Miami but can't speak Spanish. It's where the gringos go. Seriously. Call in 218-339-8525. Once again, that number is 218-339-8525. You have any questions, you want to put any input. But the reason that they keep her in office is the same reason that Elijah Manley fears for his life for running for school board at large. For school board, he fears for his life. The reason that they want to keep her in office is the same reason that Elijah Manley, once again, by the way, if you don't know Elijah, he's the former presidential candidate for the Green Party, and he's also running for school board at large for Broward County. But Elijah was kicked out of a Nancy Pelosi meet and greet out here by the Secret Service, or excuse me, by the FBI, I apologize, because he was quote unquote a threat to Nancy Pelosi and Debbie Wasserman Schultz. He was followed home. He was robbed. And I was like, well, why is that? He said, man, look, Broward County is the first or second largest finance district, school district specifically, in the entire nation. I did not know that until he told me, which is why it's so important. Like I said, you have to watch these little interviews, man. When I tell you, if I interview somebody, I'm interviewing them for a reason. And I interview people that some people would consider are perceivably, they're not unimportant, but some people perceive them as unimportant because they don't have these flashy names that you can instantly recognize from the news or from YouTube or your favorite politician. Like, I interviewed a woman who was telling us exactly what Anthony Rendon is doing in California and how the party is backing them and how the policies that he is advocating for are allowing or causing cancer to rise at an extremely high rate in his district specifically. And she's running against him. So these, if you have not subscribed to my channel, I'd strongly urge you to, because like I said, the interviews that we have, they're impactful. It's stuff that you need to know in order to understand how this whole political game works. The state level is where it starts. And with Elijah, he found out about the money that was going into this district probably earlier than he should have, because he was still in school when he found out. And he started doing more and more research. And he found out something that was going to really, and possibly still could be the demise of the Florida Democratic Party, which is that they have been funneling hundreds and hundreds, and actually I think to a degree in one situation like millions of dollars outside of the school system into people's pockets. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz, long story short, helps facilitate that. Debbie Wasserman Schultz makes sure that nobody asks questions. Debbie Wasserman Schultz makes sure that things don't go investigated. And then Debbie Wasserman Schultz helps to make sure that when you want to run for another public office, that you get the job you want to. This isn't a little bit of money. A lot of you all know how school districts are funded. So you understand when I'm telling you that if someone can funnel out $1 million without anybody blinking an eye, it's some serious shit going down. So if you're wondering if there would be any incentive to cause commotion in this particular district, ask why Tim Canova had his ballots destroyed by one of Debbie Wasserman Schultz's lackeys. And it was serious. This is how far they were willing to go. They were subpoenaed for those ballots. They were subpoenaed by a court, a federal court. Give us those ballots. Things look fishy. We need to get down to the bottom of this. And in response, they said, fuck that. I would rather destroy these ballots and be held in contempt of court than to allow people to figure out the truth of what's going on in this district. Because if you think about it, I just told y'all Elijah Manley, who was running for school board at large, was considered problematic. School board. So imagine what happens. Imagine what happens when Tim Canova takes over Debbie Wasserman Schultz's job and all of a sudden is given access to everything that she knows. And it's not like they're passing it on to a neoliberal. If it was another neoliberal, they may not be so quick. But not only do they have to deal with somebody trying to unseat her, but they have to deal with someone who is going to call all of their shit out and is going to air everything out. And what's the point of me telling you all this? Well, the point of me telling you all this is so I can frame this for you. The point of me telling you all this is so I can help you understand. If you think that there is no incentive to cause commotion, then you're wrong. If there was ever going to be a place to cause commotion, this would be it. Once again, let me clarify. This is not saying that people didn't die. At all, by any means, because kids definitely did die, unfortunately. Teachers definitely did die. But this is me also saying that if you think everything is as it seems, we just found out that somebody was militarized. And this was on Good Morning America, people. Like, and CNN didn't even touch it. Another kid came out and has been coming out about, has been as outspoken as Emma Gonzalez and David Hoggs and Cameron Kasky. And guess what they did with him? Shoved him to the back to the point where he went on Fox News and they let him tell his story. And I'm interviewing him later on this week. But he's luckily, let me see where he's at right now. I'm going to tell you all right now. So we got 33,000 followers today. Yesterday he didn't even have 1,000, but that was because he wasn't getting the love and the attention that the other three kids were getting. Now, like I told you all before, those other kids became instantaneously verified on Twitter. This man still hasn't gotten verified. Even though even Ben Shapiro shouted him out, which was nice of him. I'm not a fan of Ben Shapiro, but senators shouted him out. News broadcasters shouted him out. I mean, the dude gained 33,000 followers in a day. Emma and those other kids didn't even have to ask to be verified, but they were instantaneously verified by Twitter. You don't think there's something wrong with that? Am I the only one that thinks that's crazy? No, hope not. I want to read to you something. It reminded me because somebody actually posted a link to this exact article regarding the crazy sheriff, the crazy deputy that didn't respond to the shooting. It's in the antimedia.org, okay? The Broward County deputy, who has been roundly criticized since Sheriff Scott Israel confirmed last week that he did not confront the Florida school shooter, Nicholas Cruz, alleged, and I want to make sure I make that extremely fucking clear, alleged school shooter. He, for some weird fucking reason, is not pleading guilty. And he and the courts and his attorney have decided that he's not going to show up to any court cases, by the way. So we won't even get to hear his testimony. But even still, we wouldn't be able to hear his testimony anyway. Because guess why? The court, for some reason, in a clearly open and shut case, has also decided that this is going to be a sealed, if you don't know what sealed is, it means that we are not going to see anything from this case. The judge, the same judge who had the nerve to say, oh, the people should see his public records, his social records, the people deserve to know, is the same judge that is saying in an open and shut case where it's supposed to be merely, hey, we got you on film, we got you on camera, we know you did it, and that's the end of the story. That's how it was supposed to be. However, that's not what's taking place. Who called me? Somebody just called me. Look, it's actually one of my journalists from my team. But like I was saying, it's the case is sealed, and they're not even letting him speak. And this was supposed to be, once again, an open and shut case. So the deputy insisted he isn't a coward and that he didn't initially believe the gunfire was happening inside the building, according to local reports. Broward Sheriff Deputy Scott Peterson, in a statement released through his attorney Monday, said that his actions during the Valentine's Day massacre were appropriate under the circumstances. It's kind of a weird thing to say, but whatever. Peterson heard gunshots, but believed those gunshots were originating from outside of the buildings on the school campus. Okay. According to the release, BSO trains officers that in the event of outdoor gunfire, one is to seek cover and assess the situation in order to communicate what one observes with the other law enforcement. Actually, that's true. I mean, that makes perfect sense. That's what we're taught to do in the military. You scream shots fired. You identify the location of where the fire is going, like where the fire is coming from. But you don't just go Rambo into a situation when you have no idea what you're dealing with. And you definitely should call for backup. So, he said that the attorney said that the allegations that Mr. Peterson was a coward and that his performance under the circumstances failed to meet the standards of police officers are patently untrue. According to the statement sent from the office of Fort Lauderdale, their attorney from Fort Lauderdale, from the police department there. So the statement comes 4 days after Israel singled out Deputy Scott Peterson for failing to engage crews. The deputy, Israel said, waited outside for 4 full minutes. I know this sounds really weird, but and once again, good guys with guns should be doing the right thing, and that's what cops are for. But from a rational perspective, he had no idea where the shooter was. If he's being honest, right, and he thought the shots were from outside, then he actually did the right thing. And I can't really say that he's lying. I don't know his personal record. But Peterson was suspended without pay, effectively forcing him to retire. Promptly retired, Peterson, a 32-year-old veteran, was named School Resource Officer of the Year in Parkland 4 years ago. In the statement, Peterson claimed he took up a position outside the Building 12 after rushing over to respond to a report of firecrackers. He said that he was the first BSO deputy to dispatch on the radio that shots were being fired. He also claimed that he told first arriving Coral Springs officer that he thought the shots were coming from outside. Radio transmissions indicated that there was a gunshot victim in the area of the football field, which served to confirm Mr. Peterson's belief that the shooter... Oh, wow. So he was telling the truth. As far as what we can tell from radio transmissions and all that good stuff. Peterson added that he had the presence of mind to have school officials locate the shooter using closed circuit TV cameras. Sheriff Israel's statements is at best a gross oversimplification of the events that transported. The lawyer also criticized Israel for prematurely singling out Peterson, adding that the public should wait to see the results of the investigation. Absolutely. Wow. If you want to give me a call, you can do so to talk about that. 218-339-8525. That is, man. You know, sometimes it's hard for me to like wrap my mind around certain things, because a lot of things, whenever I'm reading something like that, it all hits me at once. But I want you all to think about something. When in the actual fuck has the police department held their officers accountable without an investigation, or without allowing the completion of an investigation? How many times have we seen people killed, and the first thing that comes out of cops' mouths, first thing, right, is well, we need to make sure we let the investigation take its course, and then we'll make a decision after that. And then what usually happens after the cop actually actively kills somebody? I wish I could say in the line of duty, but a lot of the times it's like Philando Castile when nobody was armed. Right? When I tell you, people, Broward County Police Department is one of the most corrupt police departments in the country. They don't investigate shit. And nobody's getting fired for shit. I mean, you got to do some egregious shit. Like, they were manufacturing and handing out crack to gentrify downtown Fort Lauderdale, and the first judge thought it was perfectly fine. They had, listen, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not saying like they were handing out crack and it was like they were entrapping. This wasn't entrapment. This was something else. The police department had a lab in the fucking building. Manufactured crack and entrapped people. But they have the nerve to fire this officer whose statement was actually corroborated. And this is the first time that because I didn't read it all the way, I was going to save it for the show, but this is the first time that I heard about the part where the radio confirmed that there were dead bodies, or at least someone who had been shot on the field, on the football field, which is what made him assess that the shooter was shooting from outside. And he was fired anyway. You get what I'm saying? He was fired without an investigation, even though once again, people, we've seen so much evidence of cops shooting somebody in cold blood that we can't even get an indictment, even though there's probable cause to charge someone. We can't even get a fucking indictment, and the police department's gonna look this black guy straight in the eye and say, yeah, we gotta fire him. He didn't kill anybody, so we gotta fire him. How fucking ironic is that? The one time the cop didn't kill somebody, the one time the cop took a step back and said, let me think before I act, so that I can help more, so I can solve this problem. The one time that the fucking cop said, let me assess the situation, let me call for backup just in case, let me look around and not let my adrenaline take over and me just going fucking shooting Rambo. Because if the cop goes into the school without knowing the situation, how do you know he doesn't walk into the school with a fucking looking down the end of a barrel? Oh, by the way, how do you know that shooter? Because once again, if we're taking time to actually assess the fucking situation, how do you know the shooter wouldn't just tear through all the kids that he had left behind him that were still running away, trying to shoot that officer? What if the officer shot kids while trying to apprehend the suspect? If it is true, by the way, that there was a victim on that field, oh, that's a problem. That is a problem. You understand that, right? Because Nicholas De Cruz took an Uber to school. Nicholas De Cruz had supposedly an AR-15 in his fucking backpack and a whole, fucking ensemble of Halo gear. Looking like he's about to go play in a fucking online match of Call of Duty, apparently, in his backpack. People, unless this motherfucker had a military grade, and not the old fucking rucksacks, he had to have the new rucksack. And even still, a lot of Uber drivers probably like, yo, bro, this don't look right. But if you're telling me that, hey, there was a kid on the field, it was confirmed by the radio, so the cop did his job. He didn't. Would I like to assess the situation faster? Of course, kids died. We would all love for the situation to be assessed faster, but that's not how it happens in real life. And I think that the parents understand that. What happens when if he went in and then he died, we lose his testimony. If he went in and he died, we don't even know that kid was left dead on the field and that it appeared that the shooter was shooting from outside. What freaks me the fuck out is the possibility that somebody was shooting from long range into the school, into the windows. So now we won't know. Well, shit, maybe we will. Everything keeps coming out. I guarantee the news is going to stop interviewing people, because every time they think that they're innocently interviewing somebody, unwittingly, someone releases another bombshell. But understand what this actually means. And if you were in doubt at some point that this wasn't a fucking massive cover-up on a magnitudinal scale, this is huge. Cops don't get fired. Cops do not get fired. I don't know how else can I explain. Do I have to simplify that for y'all? Do I have to explain? Cops do not ever. You might get fired if you kill another cop. Cops do drugs, don't get fired. Cops kill people, don't get fired. At the very most, you get placed on administrative leave with pay, then you get retired and you're still collecting your pension for the rest of your life. But cops don't get fired. Cops don't get blamed by other cops. Is somebody gonna argue with that? Because if you got a fucking argument for that, because I hoped to God that I said, if this shooting is what it is, I pray that it is just a horrible massacre with some departments incompetently do their job. That's the only reason I was like, okay, he's mentally ill. It just looks like they didn't do their job. I hope that's the end of it. I really did. But let's forget the fact. Once again, let's forget the fact that these 3 or 4 or 5 kids end up verified. Million. Oh, by the way, Emma Gonzalez is like pushed 1 million followers today on Twitter in about 4 or 5 days. Yeah. Once again, they have the clout of 35-year-old senators. 35-year, senators. Let's fuck that. Let's forget about that, right? Let's even forget about the fact that one teacher said that this person had body armor on to the extent that she thought it was a police officer. This wasn't something that Alex Jones made up, people. This was on Good Morning America. She said that she thought it was a fucking police officer. But hey, fuck that. Let's forget about that. Let's even forget about the fact that another girl, Alexa, said that she was walking with Nicholas Day Cruz when she heard the first shots go off. She was with him when the fire alarm was pulled. That motherfucker must be goddamn Houdini to get off all his armor, put on a Douglas High School shirt, and throw the AR-15 some random place that none of the kids ever find it. Let's even forget the fact that the police reported that he only dropped his rifle and his backpack. Where the fuck did y'all hear anything mentioned about a body armor suit in any of the police reports? That's a pretty fucking significant detail, don't you think? That's a pretty huge detail to leave out. Let's forget the fact that Kyle Khrushchev was totally ignored by CNN for not wanting to totally obliterate the Republican Party and parrot their narrative and push for the relinquishment of all of our weapons. All he said was, I want a bipartisan approach that deals with, yes, getting assault weapons under control, but also dealing with mental health issues. And I don't think it's a one-party situation. I think we need a bipartisan solution. And they were like, oh, nah, hell nah. Can't have that. Remember, I told you, these other kids have been bombarding and only attacking Republicans. As if Republicans are the only ones that affect gun laws. They've only been attacking the NRA. Very specific. They're doing the war on an idea tactic. The same shit that's kept us in Iraq and Afghanistan. The war on terror. Oh, they're doing a quote-unquote war on guns. So we can even forget all that. And I was the one like, yo, let's just keep it objective. Let's keep it calm. Let's not run to. But no. So listen, y'all. I'm a black man from the hood. I have several black friends from the hood. I have friends that have been to jail. I have friends who are actively police officers. I have an immense amount of respect for. I have friends that are sheriffs that I have an immense amount of respect for. And all of us know that cops don't get fired. Good cops, and especially bad cops, first of all. But even good cops, they don't get fired with, at minimum, an investigation. And even still, if they did get investigated, they're going to be retired with pay. And even while they're under investigation, they're on administrative leave with pay. If they conclude that the investigation, they may say, oh, we didn't find anything, but we're going to retire him so we don't have to deal with it anymore. But hey, we're going to take care of you. The moment we realized a cop got fired. First of all, got suspended before an investigation even started without pay. And within less than a week later, he's fired. 32 years old. For doing what he was trained to do. That is the red flag of the fucking century. They just made this man a scapegoat to totally detract from the Broward County Sheriff's Department's activities and how they may have been either involved directly or indirectly with how this incident went down. And tomorrow, I'm going to go through a series of tweets that were put out last night regarding the Broward County Sheriff's Department, the school districts, and the politicians, and the little deal that they have going on out here. This is insane. It's insane to me. Sheriffs don't get fired. Police officers don't get fired, people. Like, Tamir Rice's shooter. He killed a child, and was put on paid leave. This guy was by himself. I'm sure he had to be freaking out to a degree. By himself in his mind. Said, fuck, I can't Rambo this. Which, that's the first thing you learn in a situation like that. Is, I don't give a damn if you're in the police academy or in the military. In basic training, you learn you don't go into a situation without doing recon. They made it seem as if the guy knew what was going on, that he knew who the shooter was, they knew what kind of weapon it was, and that he refused to go in. They made it seem as if there was absolutely no point where he even considered going in, but he called in, he communicated he was the reason that the backup came. But if I'm a fucking school resource officer and I see that there are shots coming from outside, and then also I'm hearing shots coming from inside. So in my mind, if I'm immediately thinking, holy shit, there are two contacts. I gotta call backup. I can't do this by myself. I'm gonna get myself and someone else killed. And from making a logical, rational choice, he was fired. I don't know about you, but even if this cop was egregiously in the wrong, let's just say, for example, everything that Sheriff Israel said was true. First of all, I don't trust Sheriff Israel as far as I can throw him. You don't get elected to Broward County Sheriff's Department unless you're crooked as fuck. Period. Point blank. I don't believe everything he said is true. But let's just say everything he said was true. The reality of the situation is, under normal circumstances, this officer still wouldn't be fired because it happens all the time. And they don't get fired. Think about it, people. How many police departments and sheriff departments have come under public scrutiny time and time again? I mean, the worst. You killed a 6-year-old boy. They don't get no more scrutinized than that. It doesn't get any more. Like, what else could you be scared of? You shot a 6-year-old boy straight in the face, and your police department is fucking defending your actions. And he didn't even get fired without pay. So, don't fucking tell me that we should just do what CNN and MSNBC and Debbie Wasserman Schultz and it's so pretty, right? It's such a pretty distraction to have kids come out in front of you and speak and talk about gun violence without actually presenting any solutions. And lo and behold, by the way, the Women's March is now helping them organize their little march in Washington. So that lets you know exactly who was behind all this shit. There is some type of war going on within our government right now, going on within the elite of our government. And I'm scared that there are going to be one too many victims before we figure this out. But in the meantime, always remember, ladies and gentlemen, find your balance. Peace.